Hello and welcome to Guess Who's Talking. Today we're joined by Martin Cosser. He's a father, a campaigner and the driving force behind the charity Charlie's Promise. In July 2023, his son Charlie was tragically killed at a party in West Sussex. Martin's response was to turn grief into action. He began speaking out on social media. He launched a charity to tackle knife crime, and he now reaches thousands of young people every year. His story is one of loss, determination and hope, and we're delighted to welcome him here. Martin, thank you so much for coming over from England to Northern Ireland to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
This is your whole life now, isn't it?
It is my life. I think when we saw Charlie in hospital fighting for his life, helpless, tubes coming out of him, I just knew I had to do something. And I think when we were told we'd have to switch off his life support machine, I made him a promise. And that was the most important promise of my life. And that was to spend the rest of my life doing, as you've just alluded to, educating young groups of people about the dangers and the immeasurable impacts of knife crime.
Can you talk about what happened that night?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So it was Saturday the 22nd of July. Charlie had gone to the party. He left our home at 7:30. 5 hours later, we were woken up as a family. So I was at home with Tara, my wife, and my youngest daughter, Eloise, who was only 15 at the time. But it was midnight. Bang, bang, bang. Police at the door. I've gone down straight away, opened the door. Where's Charlie? Are you Martin? God, they know my name. They told us that Charlie had been stabbed and he was critical. We then shot off in a police car towards the Royal Sussex in Brighton. We got diverted because Charlie had gone into cardiac arrest. They had to operate on him in the road, repair his aorta and resuscitate. We followed the ambulance and a number of emergency vehicles to the Royal Sussex, where Charlie went into cardiac arrest again. And the very long story short is Charlie fought for his life for 2.5 days, but he actually lost every milligram blood in his body. He had a ruptured bowel, a ruptured spleen. He'd been stabbed in the heart, and as I say, eventually it was irreversible brain damage due to swelling on his brain that killed him.
It must be every parent's nightmare to get that knock on the door.
You spend your whole life, don't you, seeing these horrible news stories unfold. Never for a minute do you think it can actually happen to you until it does. We're just a normal middle-class family, you know. We hadn't even been in a police station as a family. So, you know, when someone knocks on your door like that, well, when you've got the police knocking on your door like that, your old world ends and your new world begins. And it's dark and it's tough. It's destroyed the people I love most in this world. It really has.
Tell me a little bit about Charlie.
Oh, this is where you'll see me smile, because Charlie was the middle of 3 children. My eldest son, Adam, my younger daughter, Eloise, and Charlie was the middle child. Charlie was unique in so many ways. He was the one Tara and I would always say we were more intrigued about, because he was quite private in a lot of ways. He was so laid back, you see, and he just sort of got on with life. Adam and Eloise are more like me. They're open books and heart on their sleeve. And, you know, Charlie was really just, yeah, he was the intriguing one, but so kind, charismatic, talented footballer. He was at Brentford Academy as a child. And people describe Charlie as just somebody that they just click with. And it was a real honour and privilege to be his dad, yeah. He was an incredible son.
I'm relating to what you're saying. I have 2 sons myself. They're in their 20s and one's 30 now, you know, and I just can't imagine what that must feel like. So what has it actually done to your family?
Well, I'll talk about Tara first, so my wife. So Tara will still sleep with the light on upstairs. We still leave the back door unlocked because we used to leave it unlocked for Charlie. Cheeks, I called him, cheeky smile. Always called him Cheeks, because we'd leave it unlocked for him. She still messages him every day to tell him she loves him,
wow.
Even though his phone's in a box in his room with the last clothes that he ever wore that sit next to a half-eaten bag of sweet chilli nuts and his ashes. Why are his ashes at home, Lynda? Because we walked round graveyard after graveyard, crematorium after crematorium, couldn't find anyone his age. I don't like being at home unless I'm doing a talk. I'm in bed at 7 o'clock, so I can't sit in my lounge. I've had friends for a long period of time that I barely hear from. I've been away 3 times just to breathe without my wife and Adam and Eloise, and it's life's really hard. You know, Adam, my eldest son, he told us the day we were told Charlie was going to die, so on the Monday, that he had this swelling on his brain, that him and his partner were expecting their first child. our first grandchild. So, you know, he didn't get to tell his little brother he was going to become an uncle.
So many emotions in there, really, aren't
Loads.
there? Yeah. So you made Charlie a promise.
Yeah.
And you took then to TikTok. Tell us about that journey then from there.
Yeah, so TikTok is not something I'd ever been on. 13 weeks, sorry, to the day after Charlie died, I did my first talk. And I look back now and in hindsight and reflecting, it was too soon, really. It was very emotional for me to do it. But I did it with a Reformed gang member that I sometimes work with, and he filmed a bit of it, and he said, do you mind if I put it on TikTok? And I remember my response being, TikTok, tickety-tock, what's that? I don't even know what it was. Generation X. So I said, yeah, do whatever you want. And he came back to me 3 weeks later, and he said, your videos had 1 million views, Martin. And something clicked. It is, as I've just said, a very lonely place when you've had your child murdered, particularly as a man. Men are not good at these things. So I have a couple of coping mechanisms. One of them is the education that I deliver on a daily basis, but the other one is talking into a screen. I find it really therapeutic. And I joined TikTok, and it's a father's account of having his child murdered. Those moments in time that have been stolen from Charlie, but also stolen from me. And I get messages from around the world from families saying, we watch your videos, we're all in tears. Yeah. And because they're hard hitting, they're real.
I've seen you on TikTok, and it's hard to watch. Very emotional. So Charlie's Promise began the charity, and you're on quite a journey now. And you've met Idris Elba, you've met some of the royals.
I've met the royals. I won Pride of Britain for London, so you know, you've James Corden, talking to him, Claudia Winkler.
Prime Minister.
I mean, the Prime Minister. Yeah. No, so I know. Yes, I know Keir Starmer. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I don't really care who these people are in terms of titles and stuff. What I care about is, can they help our mission? Can they help influence positive change in our country? And that needs to happen. We're a country where knife crime has grown 84% in the last 10 years. Oh. I'm campaigning to have it on the curriculum as part of the PSHE content in schools.
And how's that going? I mean, are you being listened to by these people?
My goodness, yes, I am. I am being listened to. I'm frequently at the Ministry of Justice or having a meeting with one minister or another. I've had 2 meetings with Minister Dame Diana Johnson, who was previously the policing minister, where I'm campaigning to have the education I've just spoken about, but at primary school age. Because I've found, out of the 60,000 people I've spoken to in the last 13 months, 5,000 of them have been primary school kids, 8 years old. So key stage 2. At that age, they're young, they're inquisitive, they want to feel safe. And actually, for me, that's the age we need to be getting to them.
Yeah, some people might think that's quite young to be
Very
talking
young.
to kids about knife crime, isn't it?
Well, I've spoken to a 7-year-old that carries a knife, and I know of a 5-year-old at a school I'm due to visit who was found with a flick knife. So let's wake up. The reality is young people are carrying knives. My talks aren't to scare. 99% of people don't carry knives, thankfully. But if we're naive enough to think they don't, we made the mistake, okay, as a family, by not talking to our children about knife crime because we knew they'd never carry. We didn't legislate for the behaviour of the others. And the night my son was stabbed, his murderer bragged that he had a shank, Ura Veribris, and a knife twice. And people heard him and nobody did anything about it. The mum was there.
When you go to schools and you talk the way you're talking, what do you say, and what's the response from the children?
So there's a number of things I aim to do in my talks. The first one is bring Charlie to life. That's important for us as a family, so people really feel they know Cheeks. Yeah. The second thing is I take them back, and I take them on a journey from the minute that knock on the door from the police, the following 3 days up until the point we lose Charlie. I then play a film. So it's been professionally made, a 10-minute film, which includes footage from the hospital, from where I was recording and talking to Charlie, outside of the court for the murder trial. You hear from all of my family, a couple of Charlie's friends, and again, that's really impactful. After that, I take them back to the party and I talk about those missed opportunities that I've just alluded to. I signpost them to an organisation called Fearless, who are a charity that are part of Crime Stoppers, and they enable young people to report knife carriers 100% anonymously without the fear of any pushback. For kids, that's really important. I talk about the difference between reporting and snitching. Again, for young people, I'm not snitching on my mate. Actually, this is about keeping people safe. And I finish off at the end of my talks about how they can help me help us as a charity, and I play Charlie's funeral song, Leave Someday, and I get hundreds of messages a week from kids after my talks, hundreds.
What kind of things do they say? What questions do they ask?
All sorts. So they'll talk about Fearless. They'll want the reassurance that it's anonymous, and I'm like, you don't need to tell me it is anonymous. I don't want to know you're reporting them. You know, might have missed the point there a little bit, but they want to do things differently. They want to help the charity. They get Charlie into their life. We sell product on our website at charliespromise.org, and people will go and buy things.
I see you're wearing a little band.
Yes, that's one of our bands. Charlie's Promise Band, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a huge impact when you speak face to face with people.
Yeah, I've had some. You know, Jeremy Hunt's come to one of my talks. So James Cleverley was at my talk a few weeks ago. You know, I go to prisons and everywhere. I've had hardened criminals in tears. You know, I've spoken to murderers that have murdered people through knife crime, and people say, "How the hell are you doing that?" It must be hard. Well, yeah, it is hard, but actually for me to deliver the most powerful education, it's important that I understand the emotional drivers behind why people carry. So
there'll be parents watching us speaking and listening to what you're saying. If you could say one thing to them about starting that conversation with their own children, how do you start? What do you say? I
would say use Charlie Cosser as an example of what can happen. It's not just inner cities, working class and gangs. Knife crime is everywhere, okay? County lines gangs, drug couriering gangs are everywhere. This isn't to scare your audience or parents, but it is to say get close to your kids, understand who they're associating, what they're doing, search engines they're on. That isn't smothering a child. Children will make mistakes. That comes from a position of love. And I can't ask my little boy whether he heard there was a knife at the party that night because he is dead.
What are your next goals for Charlie's Promise?
We've got lots of very ambitious plans, and the one thing I am is tenacious, Lynda. We'd like to have an app, for kids in schools. So that'll centre around education, knife crime education videos, interactive, and we want to make a film for schools as well, an educational-based film, and get hubs. We want to have a hub, a Charlie's hub. Excuse me, because what we've realised actually talking to young vulnerable children is, we think with the evolution of technology, they want to be online. They actually want somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to listen to. We need to invest more time in our young people and raise the voices of them.
Tenacious is one word to describe it. Powerful and impactful and so many more things. But it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for every word that you've shared with us tonight, Mark. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, after the break, we're talking to a familiar voice on air and in song, Malachi Cush. My next guest is someone that you might remember from his days on BBC's Fame Academy, where he first wowed audiences with his incredible voice and infectious energy. Well, since then, he's gone on to build a successful career, performing and sharing his love of music with audiences all over Ireland and beyond. But what really stands out about him is his openness and honesty, especially when it comes to mental health, using his own experiences to inspire and to help others. He's talented, he's thoughtful, and he's always full of great stories. A very warm welcome to you, Malachi Cush.
Thank you so much, Lynda. A very kind introduction.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm worthy of all those
lovely
platitudes.
After, how long is it now since Fame Academy?
23 years, 24 years coming, and a lot of water under the bridge since then, and a lot of experiences, and a lot to be thankful for, it has to be said. You know, I'm lucky to be still here. I think I've always said, you know, your talent is one thing and it's given to you as a gift. It's what you do with it then, because you can't take these things for granted. You have to work hard, and you have to, you know, take the bruises and pick yourself up an odd time and keep going, you know.
Well, I want to talk about that later on, but you know, just about the Fame Academy, what was it that was in a wee boy from Donegal that made him think he could go on to this national TV talent show?
Well, I didn't think it at all. It was my father applied without my knowledge. Back in the days when he sent a VCR, he had sent a VCR of me singing in a show in Donegal, and I suspect he didn't think it would go anywhere. He was taking a chance. And then I got a letter to say that I'd been accepted to audition for this show that I never heard tell of. And initially I thought my brother was taking the hand out of me, that he had doctored this thing and sent it. But my father said, no, I had actually sent a VCR. And so I had no knowledge of it at all. It was all my father's. I suppose he saw something in me and wanted to nurture that talent. He probably knew the books weren't the future for me. And I went to the auditions. It was when I was at the auditions I realised the seriousness of it, and all of these wonderfully talented people. Like we had 3 days auditions here in Belfast. Lots of talented people from here, and then went to London for a week of auditions, and then got on the show.
Yeah, because it was huge in its day, wasn't it? One of the forerunners to X Factor.
Yeah, well, it was the biggest of its time. It was, I suppose, as you said, the forerunner of that format. But what I liked about it was it encapsulated all the elements of what I wanted to be in terms of an artist, or seen myself as. I loved songwriting. I loved creating music. I loved, collaborating. And it gave me opportunities I suspect that I wouldn't have got on living where I come from in Donaghmore. We didn't have a lot. We didn't come from wealthy backgrounds, so stage schools, things like that wouldn't have been options for me. So we learned about recording music. We learned about performing in front of the camera. We learned about the songwriting. We were with some of the top songwriters doing songwriting sessions, and of course choreography, which was not my strong point either. But these things are all important, and they sort of round you as an artist, I suppose. But if you think it was 12 weeks of a series, I was in it for 10 weeks. Quite intense.
You did really well, didn't you?
Yeah, it was great. But I remember coming off it that night and thinking, well, if I get a few gigs around home, this will be great. And I met a guy called Don Reedman, who is an incredible guy from Australia. I still count him as one of the moments in life that changed everything. And he said to me, Malachi, I really like you, and I'm going to cut a record with you. Yeah. And I thought, that sounds good. What does that all entail? And he said, we're going to speak. And within a few months, he had me in studio, putting down tracks and laying down tracks and making an album, which became a top 10 album in the UK and sold loads across Asia and Thailand and all over the place.
You're big in Thailand, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how big I am now. I was big at a time. I had number one there with one of my own songs, sat number one for 10 weeks in the Thai chart, which was huge. And I went out there and toured. Incredible experience for you. Like, I was 23 at the time, and I think when you're younger, you go through these things, like you take them and you go, wow, this is great, this is great. When you sit and look back, you go, it was some experience, like for me.
Well, you said, it taught you about how to perform to camera, a bit of choreography. What did it teach you about yourself? Because that's a cutthroat world, really, isn't it, Malachi?
I think at the time I probably didn't learn enough about myself. I was probably floating along with the experience, almost like on the tide. I think as I went on with my career, what it taught me is you got to be resilient, you got to have a thick skin, and you got to work hard, because you can fall easily into the trap when you have a little bit of success of thinking, wow, this is it, I've done it. You realise soon that actually it's just not as simple as that. And I think I realised then that there's a bit more depth to me, that I actually had a bit of staying power. And a lot of people, really talented people that I've met down through the years, that have gone and disappeared, and you can get insecure because maybe you're not getting the success. You have heights and then lows. And you have to embrace both, I think. And I've met wonderfully talented people who haven't stood the test of time, because it's difficult, it's tough, but I think you need to be resilient. And I think I learned that I certainly had that staying power and that grit, and I think that probably came from my home and my rearing.
Well, I suppose a lot of that was and how you manage with resilience and so on was brought into sharp focus when you had your accident a few years ago. Do you want to just remind us what happened there?
Well, that's coming up on 6 years now. And I was simply in Dungannon. Traditionally Monday's my day off. And I wanted to do some gardening, so I went into the local hardware shop, got a strimmer, was putting into the boot of the car, and out of nowhere another car came and smashed into me and the guy that owned the shop. And I was airlifted then to the Royal Victoria, where I spent a couple of weeks there, and then I was in the Musgrave at surgeries on this leg. I was very badly injured. I was reconstructed around here, and it was probably the toughest period of my life, but also within that a great period of learning. At that time we had done a series for UTV called Home, with Mali Productions. We had done a first series which had really done very well, where I was interviewing people, bringing them back to their home place, talking about what made them who they were. We were just about to go into series 2. Obviously, I wasn't fit to do anything, so my physical life was altered. My work life was gone. So you learn a lot. You learn you can be done without, which is a big thing to realize. And you also learn that your circle is quite small. You'll know this whenever the phone's busy, and my phone was always busy going, and it was for about 6 weeks after the accident, but then died down, and somebody fills those gaps.
Yeah.
All those bookings, somebody has to do them.
What was it that got you through that very difficult time in your life, Malachi?
Well, family,
Yeah.
faith, and of course the medical professionals, because I said this often. There's a wonderful surgeon called Kira Stevenson, younger girl than me, came into the room and told me what the injuries were and the severity of the injuries to this leg, what she proposed to do, staged reconstructions, and what that would take and entail. Her and her team and the great medics here that we have did the physical. I found it difficult when I was in the Royal. When you're there day in day out for a while, you find it difficult from a mental perspective, psychological perspective.
Yeah. You've been very open about that, haven't you? Your mental health. What makes you want to share that? Because it is quite a private thing for a lot of people. Well,
I think that's the problem. It is a private thing, and sometimes people don't like to admit that. We're all human. We all have frailties, and we all have moments where we have to challenge ourselves and focus our minds and ask for a bit of help. I remember being hoisted into a chair and brought into a shower by two girls to shower me, and sitting there crying, thinking, where is this going to end up? Not really knowing, Kira, the surgeon, then said, "You pull yourself together. You're going to get better." But it was at the moment you were thinking, where is this going to arrive? Where's it going to go? But I speak about it because, it's because to say to people, you do get to another side. There is a better day.
Yeah.
It does take a bit of sharp focus on your own mind and your own health, and it does take a bit of reliance on other people as well. And we shouldn't be afraid to accept that. I think we come from a place where you have to pull on, pull yourself together and all of that. And that's fine for a certain degree, but you also need to be fit to lean on each other as well. And that's part of humanity, who we are, that we do lean on each other and that we help each other.
Well, family and community are so important to you, and you still live in County Tyrone today.
I still live in County
How
Tyrone
important
today.
is that community to you?
Well, hugely important. As I get older, all the more important. Like, I lived in London for a couple of years after the show. I realised there very, very quickly that my circle of friends were manufactured, if you want to put it like that a little bit. My true family resource and friendship group were at home. And I made the decision. I remember going into the management company and saying, I want to leave London and go home. And they basically said to me, "You go there, you're not going to have a career. This is where it's at." They put it, and they also, if you go back to Ireland, we'll not work with you, because this is where the work is, and there's not enough work there.
Well, you've proved them wrong on that, haven't you? Because the latest album is out, and Healing Sounds. What's on this? Because it's quite faith-based, isn't it?
Well, inspirational and faith, and these are a collection of songs that have helped me through moments in life where I've needed a dig a little deeper. And I was recording this album thinking, I feel like we're in a period in the world where the world needs a bit of healing. The world needs a bit of time to reflect. I think we're in a difficult period in history. I think we'll look back at this period, and it's been a pretty dark period, and hopefully we're coming out of that now. And there's songs in there that I've written that have been special to me, songs that I've collaborated with other artists, people who are important to me. Karen McGuckin, my great friend, is there.
Johnny Cash's sister.
Johnny Cash's sister features on there, Joanne. And she released the song, and she released it in Nashville as a solo, and it did really well out there. Yeah. And I ended up going out and doing a little tour with her in Nashville, and she brought me to her mother and father's homestead where Johnny and her were brought up. Incredible experience, to be in their space. But it's a record that I'm very proud of. Previous times, I think I've been an artist can be.
Yeah.
Rush, rush, rush to get a product out. I've taken my time with this and I'm pleased with it.
Well, I look forward to hearing it, Malachi. Great stories as ever. Thank you so much, and we wish you such all the best with your career. Thanks for joining me again
Thank
today.
you. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.